Nobody went to school for sales. Each of us has our own journey, a journey that ultimately reveals the two opposing forces: the art versus science, the relationships versus the metrics, selling versus sales. What side are you on? This is the Love Selling, Hate Sales podcast.
Okay, well, welcome to the Love Selling Hate Sales podcast. Today, I am joined by Scott Ingram, who wears a sales hat, obviously, as it's physically shown on his head here. So he is the founder of the Sales Success Media Company and also is a quota carrying member of Relationship One. Scott, thanks for joining.
Glad to be here, Josh. Thanks for talking.
Yeah, my pleasure. So lots of topics and lots of ways we can go, but the Love Selling Hate Sales podcast is dedicated to what I call the art versus the science, and the fact that as a seller myself, I love the relationship side. I love talking to people. I love all of that, but I hate when my boss tells me it's time to put stuff into CRM and look at this report and build your cadence and all that kind of stuff. So as the founder of Sales Success Media, I'm sure you've had a little bit of experience with that and talking to the hundreds of people that you've spoken to.
Yeah, for sure. And for folks who don't know that show, I mean, this all started about 3.5 years ago with the Sales Success Stories podcast. And I only interview real quota carrying sales professionals who are either the outright number one top performer in their companies, or I joke, I'm willing to settle for the top 1%. So somebody's number two on a team of 500, we'll call that close enough, and we'll have them on. And, now we're over 90 interviews into that show. And I've certainly learned a ton, gotten a lot better through that process, just surrounding myself with that level of greatness.
So did Reed tell you that he was number one?
That's what he told me.
Oh man.
I think at the time you were leading the team. So
yeah,
I think it was true from an individual contributor standpoint.
Gotcha. No harm, no foul.
That's right.
No foul. Anyway, so, well, that's great context, talking to obviously top producers, right?
That's right.
Is there something consistent that you find with those people that are top producers when it comes to, do you find that balance? Are they able to balance the data, the sales management side of it with the relationship side, or do you see a heavy lean one way or the other?
It's a stylistic thing. Some folks, what I have found is there are lots of different approaches. And ultimately what I think, if you were to ask me, like, what's the secret, what's the one thing is they have figured out how to be the best version of themselves. And that's a gigantic range. I think there's maybe even a slight majority of the folks that I've interviewed are actually introverts, which would probably surprise a lot of people. And because of that, and I don't know that it necessarily follows the introvert extrovert scale, but that's one lens that we could apply here. I think some folks tend to be a little bit more data driven. I find some that just, they live in their CRM. That's how they're driven. That's what they do. There's others who have negotiated with their boss to figure out, and have literally had the conversation to figure out, what is the absolute bare minimum that you need me to put into this damn thing, because this is just a waste of life.
Right.
And we're going to move on. For me, here's the thing. I think CRM was built wrong from day one.
Mm-hmm.
CRM was built as a management tool. And it's only as good as the data that gets put in it, which has resulted in this situation where we're all being whipped to try and get the data into our CRM. If they built it the other way around, and I've seen this before, if they built a CRM, I'll tell you a story in a sec. If they built the CRM to serve the seller and to make us better, then the data would be there.
That's right.
But that's not how it's built. So years and years ago, I worked for a little, well, they weren't super little, but they were a relatively small web design firm. And they had built their own CRM. And I spent, 7 months working with these guys. I mean, it was a very, very short stint. In that 7-month period, I probably got more compliments on my follow-up than I have in the rest of my career. And I'm pretty damn good at follow-up.
Wow.
Because all of it did is, I mean, there was just little silly, simple things that once you looked at it, you're like, of course it should work that way. So for example, I mean, it was basically, here's my dashboard. Here's the people that I need to call for today.
Okay.
Well, what's the most common thing that happens if I pick up the phone, Josh, and I try and call you? What is going to happen to me?
You're going to leave a voicemail or
I'm going
get
to get
no
your
answer?
voicemail.
Yeah.
Okay. In Salesforce, how many clicks is it for me to leave a little note that says, hey, I left Josh a voicemail and now I need to schedule the next call? And it's probably, I don't know,
That's
15 clicks.
Yeah, it's a minimum of 5 just to like log the call and then just set up your next task and all that. Yeah. I mean,
It's stupid. It's
yeah.
stupid. In this system, I clicked one button. I clicked
Interesting.
one button that said left a voicemail. And then it automatically goes, oh, okay. Well, in 2 business days, we'll just automatically create a task that says call Josh again.
Right.
And like, yeah, of course. That's
How
so
intuitive is
simple.
that?
It
Right.
makes all the sense in the world. So, and yet here we are. God, that was 12 years ago. Here we are fighting with our CRMs, and we've got this giant disconnect because they're built backwards.
Interesting.
Your CRM does not make salespeople better
No,
unless they invest too much time. And if they're investing too much time, they're not very good
they're not selling.
salespeople.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I think that ease of use, and that's something that, professional services like the one that your company works for and the one that my company works for, we probably bang our chest on that every now and then. Like, you need to make the CRM experience, the marketing automation experience, you need to make it a part of your seller's day or your marketer's day. Otherwise, it's not going to be adopted. There's such a dependency-based relationship on the success of each of them. Marketing automation only gets you halfway there without the CRM connection.
Right.
And being able to push sellers to get that data is where a lot of that friction comes between sales and marketing, right? How have you seen the top producers build the relationship with their counterparts in marketing?
You know what? I will say that it is, even among very, very top performers, it's a small minority that really has that relationship strong. And honestly, it's probably those of us, and this just has to do with where my network is and
Right.
who I hang out with. It's guys like you and I, right, that probably work in the marketing space to some degree. In my history, I've sold for Eloqua. I mean, I've been in the marketing technology space for basically the last 10 years. Eloqua, Bizarre Voice, Certain.
Yeah.
And it's, for me, I've just developed some level of empathy. I mean, that's who I sell to. It's who I talk to all day long.
I hear you.
And because of that, I think I naturally gravitate towards my own marketing departments, and I'm working to help them and understand their world and figure out how we can help each other. But honestly, it's a pretty unnatural relationship. I mean, honestly, it's made me a lot better because I think like a marketer as a sales guy.
Totally.
And I think that's super powerful. And that's a tiny, tiny minority.
Yeah.
There's very few salespeople that really think at the level of, brand and those kinds of things, right? I mean, how many sales guys out there really have a super powerful personal brand?
Yep.
Who are working for somebody else and aren't consulting or have moved on to be a CEO of their own thing or something like that? You very, very rarely see it.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm with you in the same, selling to the same similar audience and having that same mindset. I'm curious, do you think, going back to the CRM piece just a little bit, do you think marketing can help with that at all?
It's not a marketing problem.
Yeah.
I think the opportunity with sales and marketing is really just one. I wish that we would sort of embed each other in each other's teams, right? So somebody in marketing should be sitting in the sales pit.
Yeah.
And really just absorbing and hearing what's going on and hearing the conversations. And somebody in sales should be a marketer.
You're right.
Right.
Totally.
And just kind of solve for, and I think the place where there's the easiest connection point, or there used to be, it's not really a thing right now. But I think is around events. That's the place where we directly overlap the most. Right. So marketing's doing all of the work. They're figuring out, here's the space we're going to have, and here's all the collateral, and here's all the stuff. But, typically it's sales that is manning the booth and having the actual conversations. There's a great opportunity to do a lot of interaction there, because if you do that well, you get the pregame done right, and you're having a lot of meetings during the event. So you're having a much, much more productive event. And if sales is conscious of what marketing is going to want to try and do after the fact, we could be capturing better data at the event so that we can drive better follow-ups. And then again, I want to have a lot of influence into what that follow-up sounds like. And what do we do with the quote unquote leads? And can we get on the same page about what a freaking lead is? Because just because somebody dropped their business card in a bowl because they wanted some styrofoam piece of whatever, doesn't count. Doesn't count. Don't waste my time. I'm not calling that guy.
Yeah. And I think that's a powerful message in a place where top producers should make their voice heard a little bit more, because you know as well as I do that they're not all created equal, the leads, and what the outcome of that event should be isn't the same for you and me as it is the BDR, right? There's all these different moving pieces of what an event and what event sales and marketing should look like. I love that concept a lot. I want to pivot back a little bit to something you mentioned about a lot of the top producers you spoke with being introverts. And it resonated with me because I remember, we'll go back 6 years now when I first started at LeadMD, and Justin, our CEO, said, "Hey, you need to go out to San Francisco and just talk to people." And I was like, "Okay, I don't know who I'm talking to, but I'll try that out." And he just gave me a list of names and I started talking to people. And I remember I met with a former Marketo account executive, a guy named Brandon Delgadio, and we'll give him a shout out here. And I remember meeting this guy thinking, holy crap, this isn't a SaaS bro. This isn't, the dude with the hair and just totally broing out in the office. This guy is a thoughtful, calculated, knows everything about the people within the account that he's talking to. He's prepared. He's knowledgeable. He's eloquent. I remember seeing that guy just being like, okay, now this is different than I ever thought of a salesperson being. And it had a profound impact on me because he's not an extroverted, talk to everybody type of bro culture guy. And he had a huge influence on the way I projected my career moving forward. So talk to me about some of those people that you've met with that kind of changed the course of the way you thought about that.
Yeah, if anything, I think those conversations and that show has just been so stereotype smashing, because it's a tiny, tiny minority that are the traditional bros. Right. Those guys aren't top producers. They'll tell you they are.
Sure.
Right. But it's, you know what it is, if you really boil it down, the thing that I see the most is the very best are those that care the very most, and not about their commissions.
Right.
And not about being number one. Those are side effects. Those are pretty damn good side effects, but they're side effects of doing what's right for their customers and really helping just dig in there and solve problems. I mean, that's really what this job is, right? Let's get in and let's figure this out. And I think being an introvert in that way, really, it serves you, right? You're going to be better at listening. You're going to be more thoughtful. You're going to do the work, the real work that's required that people don't see. It happens under the water, right? If you imagine the duck on water, right? It's all that work that's happening behind the scenes where they're thinking about and doing research and doing the prep and figuring out, how do I take care of this customer? How do I get them what they want, what they need, what they don't even know that they need, but is going to help them in their careers and help them grow revenues or whatever metric we're trying to impact. That's the stuff, right? That's what these folks care about. That's what unfortunately is never going to look amazing in a movie. And so we're probably never going to see that real, true sales professional, but that's really what it is. That's the game.
Man, I totally agree with you. And you hit on something that is actually one of the core backdrops of love selling and hate sales. And that's that I don't feel like as a sales profession, we're doing a good enough job of training the new sales reps to think like problem solvers, to think like business owners and have business level conversations. We're training them to sell feature function and build outreach cadences or sales loft cadences and just this volume and mass scale approach. I started a business out of college. I didn't go work for somebody. It was mildly successful at best, But guess what? I learned how to read a balance sheet. I learned how to do a profit and loss. I learned how to understand my cost basis on things. I learned to think about what the CEO thinks about. And now, like you, in an arena where I don't have a product to sell, I don't have a demo to pitch, I don't have anything like that. The only thing I have is the allure of fixing a system or fixing a go-to-market strategy. So I have to dive into their business problem and sell like I don't have anything to sell. So how can we up-level the skill sets of the young reps coming in to get away from this feature function mass scale approach?
Yeah, that's a great question. You and I come from very similar backgrounds. I mean, I started my first company when I was 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And for the Breaking Bad fans out there, that company was called Gray Matter Technologies.
Nice.
And
Walter White.
sold that when I cashed out of Southern California. So sold the company, sold the real estate, been here in
There you
Austin
go.
ever since for the last 16 years now, I think.
Love it.
So, I mean, that's one, right? I think it's interesting. I have seen some powerful sales professionals who have come up through the business.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times they have been in the role that they're selling to. I had a guy on the show named Matt DuPont. Matt was a developer and a program manager, or not a program, a product manager.
Interesting.
And now he sells to them. You think that guy can differentiate himself versus every other sales goober out there?
He just speaks the language so well.
He speaks the language. He knows who they are. He knows what the problems are.
Yep.
You know, I've seen folks that have come up through customer service, customer support, customer success. I think those are amazing, right? Because you get to see the problems that your customers are trying to solve day in and day out. And you know the ins and the outs, and you can speak the truth to your product and know, hey, this is going to help you with that. Or I'm going to be honest with you and say, we've got a gap here, and I'm not going to just set this up to be a relationship that's going to churn after a year and just leave a lot of ill will in the community. So I think it's really incumbent on the, I think so much of this is incumbent on the individual to seek this out for themselves. You've got to figure out how to develop your sales acumen. I interviewed a guy named Colin Spector. And at the time, Colin worked basically every sales role there was at Namely. So he came in as an SDR. He was an AE. He was a manager. He did everything. I think he's leading a sales team somewhere else right now. And one of the things he did I thought was so genius, and we all need to do this, and we should all never stop doing this, is when he first came into that organization, he really didn't worry himself about the product knowledge. Instead, he wanted to just get in the head of his buyer. And so he was on Quora, Quora, because that's a really hard word to say. And he was just asking questions, and then he would talk to, selling to HR for the most part. So he would just set up calls with them and talk to them about, hey, the last time you bought this kind of software, why did you do it? What was your criteria? How did you do that evaluation? Like, what mattered to you? Like, simple stuff.
Right.
But when was the last time that you came into a new sales role and talked to a customer?
Yeah.
It's totally. Like mind-blowingly simple. And this isn't just a sales thing. This is a marketing thing too. Like, how many marketers don't talk to their customers? That's bonkers.
It's mind-blowing.
It's totally bonkers, but it's the mass majority.
That's
and
right.
So we really need to develop not only the business acumen, but customer acumen, and just being able to have the most extreme degree of empathy and understand what is your world. What is the day in the life? What are you worried about? How does your boss look at you and evaluate you? Right? What's going to determine whether or not you get the next promotion? All of that stuff that, again, if you took the average sales guy off the street, would have no idea how to answer those questions.
Yeah, I think those are incredibly powerful statements, especially when you think about the customer living in, putting yourself in their shoes to that extent. I also think of that is what I like to consider the long game approach. right? These are things that all of those conversations are planting seeds that are going to benefit you at some point.
Well, here's the thing. So I bet you could build an incredible onboarding plan around this, where essentially your job is to go develop your own mentors. So go find people who will be in your territory, in your target market, who aren't even customers yet.
Right.
And your job is to reach out to them, develop some relationships, and basically just you're not allowed to sell for the first 60 days. Right? Look, I'm brand new to this. I don't know anything. My job is to learn all about you and your world and develop those relationships. I bet if you did that, and I think it's actually key that you not allow people to sell through that initial period, because you're going to want to, and sometimes they'll basically beg you.
Right.
Because you will have demonstrated that you care, that you're listening, that you're working to understand their situation. I bet if you do that, you'll convert a pretty decent percentage into future customers. You will have an incredible referral base who will be able to open doors for you that you just wouldn't have been able to open any other way. And then these are your future references. They're going to be everything for you. And anybody can do that, because when was the last time you as a VP of sales had somebody reach out to you and said, Josh, my job is just to understand your world and to spend some time with you. Would you be willing to do that with me? Would you ever say no to somebody coming up to you and asking you to do that?
I wouldn't.
Right. I don't think most people would.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I think it's one of those things that it would be great to get some sales leaders on board with that and test it. And even A/B test it with the standard onboarding plan, because what I struggle with is the very best figure out that the long game is the only game.
Right.
Because it will feed it will feed the short game, but you can't treat every conversation like a short game type of thing. And the culture that young reps are brought up in, that has a monthly quota, a quarterly quota, that rolls up to the annual quota, whatever it is, they can't get past it, right? And you're seeing the rep burnout. You're seeing the quota attainment at an all-time low. You're seeing,
I think you're seeing the market burnout.
Correct.
I think, because again, it's this churn and burn. It's, let's load up our spam cannon.
Right.
And let's, now we're going to use automation.
Right.
So I'm just going to blast people to death until they curse my name and my company's name.
Right.
And
exactly.
it's interesting, because I've done this work. I go talk to my executives, and I want to get inside their head as somebody who's in a marketing leadership position, who has lots of people trying to sell them stuff.
Right.
What resonates? What breaks through? What is your process? I had an amazing insight when I learned this. You know what a lot of executives do? As soon as you send that first undifferentiated message, they build a filter so they're never going to see anything from you ever again.
Wow.
You're done. Message 1, gone. And you're never going to reach them again, because they automate it. You automate them, they're going to automate their ignoring of you. And that's not a one-off.
That's
right.
Amazing.
That is, because otherwise, imagine what their life would be.
Yeah.
Imagine if you were subjected to all of these messages and you didn't do something about it so that you could control what your inbox looks like, because you've got other bigger, better priorities.
Thousands of emails a day that are meaningless to you.
I'm not gonna respond to this, one slight level above spam.
Yeah.
Like, this is only barely better than, like, I need Viagra.
Yeah, totally. So we have to obviously teach new ways of prospecting then.
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm the biggest believer on the planet in quality over quantity.
Yeah.
Right. Because, man, if you have to make 100 dials a day, you're doing it wrong.
Totally.
And if you were really thoughtful in your outreach to 15 or 20 or maybe even 25 people, I promise you're going to get more meetings than just bashing your head against the phone or the email or whatever you're doing 100 times every day. It's just, it's not going to work.
But yet
it doesn't work. We see it. Why is everybody's missing, right?
But yet the only metric that sales leaders are measuring is activity metric. That's
just stupid.
How do we get over it? How do we change them? I know you and I are trying to do that, and pound the quality over quantity message. But there's a reason why, at least me, I can't speak for you, went into a sales leadership role and then went out of a sales leadership role on purpose.
Let's talk about that. I want to hear your story, because I have said for years, I didn't realize I basically coined this term, but I call myself an intentional individual contributor. Right? For me, this is about leading from the field. I don't need to be a sales manager. I don't need to be a VP of sales. In fact, I love the degree of control. It's a lifestyle choice, basically. I control my life. I control my schedule. I already have children. I don't need more. Like, I'm good. I'm good. Why have you chosen to go back away from the VP of sales path?
Yeah. So, obviously I've been with LeadMD for 6 years, was a small business owner, was an individual contributor leading up to that, was very successful in my first few years with LeadMD, and just had that. I think what happens a lot of times is, the boss says, you're doing great. We have a gap. It's time for you to fill it. And you see that title and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah. You know what? You're right. That is the next thing that you go and do. So you step in, and at least for me, I realized, oh crap, I don't really know what I'm doing. And I guess I didn't really know what this entailed. And what it entailed for me, how I internalized it, was I have to create process, create structure, and enforce those things. Well, I hate process. I hate rules. So who am I to be the one to enforce those things? Right.
Yeah.
So it just got to this point where I didn't feel like I was being overly impactful in that role, whereas I had been very impactful to the organization and to myself financially by being an individual contributor. So I went back to, Justin, who's my boss, and I said, listen, man, I don't think I'm providing the value to you that I once was and that I could be. And it's just kind of stressing me out, and I'm not a stressed out dude. So do you mind if I just go back to selling for you, and we just not forget this ever happened, but it was, basically, let's forget this ever happened. Yeah. And I was shocked at how responsive he was to that message. Yeah. He was just like, dude, nobody steps down from a VP of sales roles and stays. Like, they'll go somewhere else. Like, it's too big of an ego pill to swallow.
Yeah.
To stay. And he's like, man, you're absolutely like, yes. So I give him a lot of kudos and thanks for being open and receptive to that message and giving me the shot to try it. I wouldn't have known otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, you have to recognize it's a completely different game. And I mean, how many times have we seen, somebody puts, well, you're the top sales guy, so we're supposed to put you into that role. And that person says, okay, well, I'm supposed to take this next step in my career. And it's lose-lose. The person in that role hates it. The company hates it because they're not getting they're losing results.
Their best performer. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when that opportunity opened for me, I recruited one of my friends who I knew would be a great boss for me.
Right. Yeah,
I'd worked with him before. I'm like, hey, I'm not going to do it, but I know the guy who should be doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's something that, we work in a company that doesn't have a huge sales team, right? So there's a difference between sales leadership at a, mid-size consulting firm and sales leadership with an army of 500 to 1,000 sales reps out there. And obviously the different the tiers of sales leadership that get baked in there. And it actually kind of brings up a good point. What are you seeing from frontline sales management at these bigger organizations? Because that seems to be one of those areas that is critically important to the development of young sellers, but they seem to get lost in the mix of the VPs and the CROs, the regional VPs. There's this frontline manager who becomes this mentor, but are they really getting trained and taught things that, are they just going off of what they were as a seller?
Well, yeah, that's it. So I think that basically every part of sales is broken. I think the individual contributor experience is pretty broken. I think if you do try and go down the sales leadership path, that's totally messed up, because at every stage, nobody's ever really getting developed well through this process. And the disconnect I see, right? So we talked about quality versus quantity. I think the difference and the problem is people trying to manage by spreadsheet or manage by activity or treating everybody like a number. Because again, if what I'm seeing most consistently across the top performers is they have found their own unique way to do it, which means by definition, this isn't McDonald's. Right? We're not all going to make fries the same way at the same time, the same exact amount of salt and the whole freaking thing. The real job and what I look for, and here's an interesting observation I've had is that I don't believe, it's possible this isn't true, but if it is true, it's barely true.
Yeah.
I don't believe I have ever interviewed a sales professional who is number one in an organization despite their boss. They were there partially because of their boss, because they had somebody who was supporting them and helping them go to that next level. Because here's the deal, this job is way too hard to have to do the battle that we do every day and battle your own damn leadership.
Right.
That's too freaking much.
It's too much.
Right. So instead, and here's what I look for is I need somebody that is going to polish the diamond. I'm pretty damn good at what I do, but I know I can be better. And so the way that I use my sales leaders is I need somebody, and I've had those that can play this game with me and we've done great. And I've had those that this doesn't work and none of it works.
Right.
And so the process is like, Josh, here's my idea. Here's the play that I want to run. Here's how I want to run this process. Here's how I want to structure this deal. Here's how I want to manage this relationship. All of that stuff. And a good sales leader is going to ask smart questions and is going to help me think through that process and make it better. We're going to polish the diamond together.
I love
what doesn't work is I bring that to you and you say, okay, Scott, yeah, no, you need to do it this way, which is your way, which would work for you. It will not work for me because I am not you. And that to me is like the universal disconnect.
So the sales leader needs to be a sponge, right? They need to be able to take in what their people are giving them, have a level of trust that their way is going to find the way to the promised land, and then find out how to mold around them.
Yeah.
So if that's the correct
it's really
answer,
just helping them find their way, right? And some people are going to be better at this than others, right? Some you're going to have to guide a little bit more and say, well, why don't we try it this way, right? Other people are just going to bang their head against a wall and go, okay, that's not working. Help. Now what do I do? Right? It's just a process. We all have to work through it in our own way. But man, if homeschooling taught me anything, if I try and dictate what your schedule is to the minute and I don't give you enough breaks and I don't give you enough control, you're going to rebel over that. And there's going to be a lot of screaming and your teacher is going to end up drinking on the job.
Right.
Or now the school district has gotten back involved, thank God. And they are way smarter than me, just said, hey, look, today, get these things done. Don't care how you do it. Don't care when you do it. There's like no yelling in my class. The teacher's not drinking so much anymore. You know, and I'm like, wait, isn't this, I mean, this is also why I'm not in management. I can't even manage my own family, but
you and me both, man.
But it's like, oh, wait a minute. When you give people control and you trust them to do what they need to do, it's amazing what they get done. It's amazing how much better the end results are when they control the way they did it and they're able to use their own strengths in the process. Like, oh my God, this like how is this lost on us when we go then into and put on our sales leadership hat?
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. It begs the question that we need to do, like you said, the whole process is broken. We need to think of better ways to train from the ground up, all the way up to the management. And, some of those graduation points, if somebody is really fit to be a manager, someone who's not you and me,
not it.
What can they legitimately handle early on? And I don't know if we think about that, right? I mean, if you're trying to figure out these couple of personalities, how many of those can you figure out and really figure out how to mentor and coach and
Right.
polish the diamond
Yeah.
early in your career? You might
For
get better
sure.
at it, but
Yeah.
it might be 2, 3.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because that's not the only thing they're being asked to do.
No,
Right. To your
of course not.
point, like, I'm going to need you to figure out process. I'm going to need you to do all of the forecasting. You
Mhm.
know, there's some level of managing up that needs to
100%.
happen in that role. Right. It's not just the people that you're responsible for. You're not just a coach. You're not just a mentor. You've got a lot of other responsibilities. So to your point, like,
Yeah.
what can we reasonably expect here?
Yeah. Well, I think that may be a whole different conversation, the managing up comment.
Well, yeah.
That was also something I wasn't very good at. So that may be a whole other topic. Well, talk to me a little bit about some of the other work that you're doing with sales success.
Oh man, there's a lot. So again, the main show, that's an interview that happens every other week, or at least they get released every other week,
Mhm.
and they can be really long. So I realized a little over a year ago, I realized approximately 450 something days ago that the two best things about that show are also the two worst things about it. So number one, my criteria is ridiculous.
Mhm.
And I had some amazing people that were approaching me where I knew, like, this person is about to publish the sales book of the year and they want to
Wow.
come on my podcast, and I'm telling them no. And I didn't
Wow.
like that very much.
Yeah, I
And
bet.
the other side of it is, especially if you don't know what you're getting into, my last episode, well, no, that was true until today. Today's a little bit more reasonable, but the episode before last was 2 hours and 2 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
You know, on average, we're 75 minutes. I mean, they're deep. You know, I dig in. One of my favorite compliments is I get called the Tim Ferriss of sales. I like
That's
that,
amazing. Oh yeah, that's
right?
incredible.
That's great stuff. But if you're just coming to the show, like, it's a lot. So 400 and some odd days ago, I created the exact opposite show. So every single day,
Okay.
I have a show called Daily Sales Tips, and it's true to its name. And so we do the average episode there's about 5 minutes.
Oh, I like
And,
that.
and they come out every day because I actually did better than I originally hoped. My original goal was less than 10 minutes per day and always less than an hour a week. So even if you just listened once a week, you could
Right.
binge through all of those episodes in less than an hour.
Nice.
It's probably closer to 30 or 40 minutes, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it every single day since we launched that show. So that's been
amazing.
cranking along. Once a year now, we do the Sales Success Summit. So that will happen here in October in Austin. And that is, Josh, if I'm honest, most of this stuff I just do for myself, like super selfishly. I just wanted to talk to the best people so I could learn, so I could get better. And
That's
it
amazing.
works. It
Yeah,
definitely
exactly.
works. I mean, my mentors are ridiculous, but I also want to be able to share that. And I also wanted to connect them with each other. And so we get together at the Sales Success Summit. It's a 2-day event, and every single person who's on that stage has been on the podcast. So by definition, they're a quota-carrying individual contributor who is an absolute rock star. And we learn so much from each other. It is the coolest event. It is super intimate. So it's different from anything else out there, right? This isn't where you go to see all the sales gurus. And I'm going to go check out that event. I think it's good. It looks cool, but it's not what I want. I want to talk to the best of my peers, and I want to learn from them. Not that I'm not going to get value from all the guys that are writing all the books. That's great. But you know, that's kind of the thing. And then the other thing I've done, because again, for me, this all started because I've always been a student of this craft.
Right.
I've read so many damn books, but it was this issue of, wait, who's writing these books? You know, the average person that's writing a sales book probably hasn't carried a quota in, on average, let's say round numbers, decades.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I also wanted to make that accessible. So I do these sales success stories books where the top performers contribute to them, but I'm not asking them to write a whole book. I'm asking them to write a couple of stories.
Sure.
And then we can pull it together. And now you've got a sales book by top sales professionals. And then I just did this other project recently because I've been working on elevating my own LinkedIn game.
Yep.
And what we did this, in fact, as we're recording this, the ebook will release tomorrow. It's called Finding Sales Success on LinkedIn. It's 108 tips from 36 LinkedIn sales stars. And
Love it.
when I say LinkedIn sales star, I looked at the people in the sales space on LinkedIn who not had tens of thousands of followers or any
Sure.
of that garbage. Like, who's driving real meaningful conversation and engagement?
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
to me is a real metric that's working, and it's at least the publicly accessible, because I can't get behind the scenes to say, okay, who's actually generating hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars out of this.
Right.
That data is too hard to get at.
Yeah, it's hard to get
But
to.
what can I use as the publicly available metric to identify at least who the market says is doing well by their levels of engagement in and around that, and that content? It's been a blast.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, just getting to know those folks and pull that little project together
How
has
far
been a ton
along
of
are
fun.
you? What's
Oh,
the
it's
release
done.
date? Oh, it's
It's
done.
done.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. So Finding Sales Success on LinkedIn, if you just Google that, actually, you can get to everything if you go to top1.fm/LinkedIn sales stars. It's all there.
All right. I love it.
Yeah, it's been a fun one.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Had a similar trajectory. This podcast is fairly new, as you know, trying to get the first season underway here. But as a spinoff, I've created the Tribe Digital Marketing series, highlighting the people in our business, right? The people who are in the weeds doing the work, and
Awesome.
those are 5-minuters that try to release every day as a video. I haven't put them on the podcast channel yet, but probably will. So it's good. I've been definitely watching people like yourself and how they go to try to build my own little niche here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, and I guess I'll by circumstance tell your entire audience one of my secrets. So I run one for Relationship One called Inspired Marketing, and for folks who don't know, I mean, we're basically doppelgangers. We work for very, very similar firms, but we just happen to work on different areas of the marketing automation ecosystem.
Yep.
That thing is the greatest door opener on the planet, because it's all about them. It's not about me.
Yep.
And it's amazing on a cold outreach when I can say, hey, Josh, you're doing some really cool things. I would love to just hear the story and feature you on the podcast. People don't say no to that stuff.
I know.
And
tell your story is so great.
And it just leads to so many great conversations, because what are we going to do together? My job is to ask questions and shut up. Oh, like a good sales guy. Right? And I'm going to allow you to tell that story. And then invariably what happens, what'll probably happen about 3 minutes from now, is we turn off the recording, and then the real stuff spills out.
Right.
It's always in I work with very large organizations, so I'm typically talking with Fortune 500 marketers.
Yep.
And they need to be really guarded about what they say publicly. Man, as soon as I turn that recording off, all the truth comes out.
All the good stuff.
It's amazing. It's again, it's the ultimate relationship building thing. And then you know what happens from there? They say, wait, Scott, you do some of this stuff. Is this something you could help us? I've never come across a more natural conversation or natural transition to a sales conversation than a podcast. It is the most underutilized sales tool on the planet, because I'm yet to find anybody else that's really doing it well or
Totally
at all.
agree. Yeah, totally agree. And I think the thing about it is it's fun.
Oh, yeah, for everybody.
Like, you're making it part of your job, and it's just fun.
It's totally fun.
Yeah, you get to open doors with people that you may not have been able to open a door with, and just kind of hear their story. Because most people's stories, especially when you get up into, like you said, the Fortune 500 folks, the guy who's an SVP that came up through the ranks, I don't really know what goes on behind the scenes and how that all comes to fruition, and the ups and like that stuff is super cool.
Yeah. And again, who doesn't want to tell that story?
Yeah.
How often do you get handed a platform to be able to share that?
Yeah. Most people don't know how to amplify.
It wants to come out, I promise.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, Scott, anything else anyone should know? It's been awesome having you. This has been really fun.
No, this is a blast. Thanks for inviting me. I would just say, if they want to learn more about me, the easiest thing to do is go to top1.fm, top1.fm, and you'll find links to everything from there. Connect with me on LinkedIn, check out the Sales Success Summit, download some podcasts. It's all good stuff.
All right. The only thing I will leave everybody with is 5 years ago, Scott and I were on the same Marketo Roadshow tour. You were at Certain, I believe.
That's right.
And I was just starting at Lead MD, and we hopped from like 12 different cities over one summer, unpacking and packing up our little trade show booth. And that's how we got to know each other. So 5 years later, still playing the long game.
Yep, that's it. That's it. I mean, I remember so many conversations in very random hotels and things with you.
Yep. Good times, man. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, Josh.
All right.